The 2025 Las Vegas Raiders exist in a black hole of ineptitude, where everything that's possible has gone completely wrong. Their offense has the league's lowest points per game, just 15.5, and for context, the 2013 Legion of Boom, arguably the greatest defense ever, gave a 14.4. The Raiders' offense essentially turns any defense into one of the greatest of all time. The offensive line is horrendous, Geno Smith looks like a shell of himself, Ashton Jeanty's been completely ineffective, and their $6 million offensive coordinator just got fired 11 games into his first season. What has made the league's worst offense so offensively bad? Today we'll dive deeper and sum up their issues into 3 separate categories: a horrible offensive line, a horrible scheme, and their passing game is horrible. The offensive line's been ravaged by injuries, so it's barren of talent, and whenever you see any of them have to go mano-a-mano with really anybody, they get absolutely torched immediately. It's a bad fit because Geno Smith struggles under pressure. According to Next Gen Stats, just 28.5% of his pressure dropbacks are successful. That's 7th worst in the league. In fact, he's always struggled under pressure, so it's critical that he's kept clean for him to succeed, but this is worse than watching the Diddy documentary. The run game is horrible too. Because of the offensive line, they have the 2nd highest stuff rate in the NFL. Stuffed means your running back gets hit behind the line of scrimmage, and that's partially because pre-snap, they're tipping off run or pass. Watch how the second level immediately triggers at the snap with no worry whatsoever about play action. They are completely downhill from the jump, and Ashton Jeanty has nowhere to go. You can see Maris Liufau signaling to Malik Hooker and the rest of the second level that Hooker should blitz, and they immediately fire towards the line at the snap and blow the play up. This is especially tough because the Raiders put all these big bodies on the line to create extra double teams. The point of a double team is to create movement on the defensive line, then depending on the front and second level technique, one of the linemen or tight ends move up to block a linebacker. But with these big backers firing off immediately, Stone Forsythe can't create a ton of movement on the defensive linemen. And plus, because of the bad coaching, Ian Thomas and Michael Mayer should double up to Malik Hooker with Trey Tucker cutting off Liufau, but the Raiders screw it up, or it's installed incorrectly, and Jeanty is tackled behind the line of scrimmage. This gets into our second category, their horrible scheme as well, because watch how later in the game the second level is barely affected by the run fake, which makes it harder for Geno Smith to execute play action, one of the best parts of his game. Here's Steve Spagnuolo talking about how to game plan against run versus play action.
We're always looking for indicators there, whether it's a tight end releasing, whether it's an old lineman, high hats real quickly. Does the offense and the offensive line do a really good job with making the run plays marry, or the play action passes marry the run book?
So here the second level sees the helmets popping up and not driving defensive linemen towards them. There are certainly other alignment formation tips the Raiders offense is tipping off too, and Kenneth Murray kinda goes for the run, sees how the O-linemen are moving, so doesn't need to fire into the gap. Geno has to throw this back shoulder to Bowers because Liufau got so much depth of the snap. He didn't fall for the run fake whatsoever, so Geno can't lead Bowers, throws it behind him on purpose, and it's tipped into the air for an interception. Or there is their terribly schemed play designs. In my opinion, this is one of the primary reasons Chip Kelly was fired, because you can see there's just nobody open for Geno. Here the Raiders are running mirrored post wheel concepts. Mirrored means both concepts are the same, where nobody is open at all. The Cowboys play in extremely common coverage against spread formations, so the Raiders should have an answer prepared. It's a split field quarters variation, where split field means there's a different coverage on each side, and quarters means there are 4 deep defenders. The majority of the time in this coverage alignment, defenses are playing what's as simple as box to the 3 receiver side and triangle to the 2 receiver side. The problem with mirrored post wheel against this coverage is if the corner doesn't carry the post, the wheel route won't be open, which is the whole point of the concept. And since both the cornerbacks have safety help over the middle, this is just simply a dead concept to both sides. There's no progression with mirrored concepts because they're both coming open at the same time. If this wheel isn't open, it's not like Geno can just whirl around and throw the other one. They're both hopefully coming open at the same point in the down, the same exact timing. So based off this coverage alignment pre-snap, there should have been an audible, an adjustment made. But the Raiders consistently do not have those adjustments in their offense, and this leaves Geno with nobody to throw to. They are so bad at executing and communicating even the smallest things within their scheme that their receivers can't be counted on to execute these smallest adjustments. Geno targets the seams on 52% of his passes, that's 8th highest in the league. But watch how Trey Tucker bends this seam up the middle instead of staying skinny vertical. Against 2 high safeties, I actually agree with Tucker here. The typical adjustment is to move away from the split field safeties, go towards open space. But watch how Geno reacts after the fact. Clearly they worked on this, discussed it, installed it a certain way, but Geno and Tucker aren't on the same page. This is part of the Raiders' horrible scheme. Execution and communication are such a big part of scheme, because even if it's a good play call, if it's not executed and communicated correctly, the quality of the play call doesn't matter at all. Our third part of the problem with the offense, the passing game, isn't as much Geno's fault as I would have thought before really diving into the film. The entire unit is so out of sync that it goes far beyond quarterback play. For example, this is what's called a thunder or indie route, where you're trying to isolate your best pass catcher one-on-one. If it's off coverage like this, you run a stop or curl or whatever you want to call it at 6 yards. If it's press, you run that at 8 yards instead to try and more convincingly sell the route further vertical, then chop down. And if it's cloud coverage, that means it's zone coverage with the corner bumping you in cover 2 zone and the safety flying over the top, so you settle in this zone right here. The problem is, the Raiders' pass game communication and all-around execution is horrible. Bowers runs this too deep instead of at just 6 yards like he's supposed to. So later in the game, we have to lock the curl, meaning not have the different adjustments on the route. We can't trust anybody, so instead of running the 8-yard stop against press coverage, and in my opinion, I'd use a fade against press too, but since we can't trust QB and receiver to be on the same page, we have to throw the 6-yard stop. We lock the curl to be on the same page, and the cornerback is all over it. So now they've locked it moving forward until they can create some synergy in the passing game, and defenses know it's coming. And look, I know Jack Beck, the rookie, isn't expected to beat Patrick Surtain one-on-one in man. Nobody can. So Beck definitely shouldn't be expected to. But when you keep watching the Raiders film, it's clear they don't have any outside threats, especially since Jacoby Myers left. It's been dire. So defenses just don't respect the deep ball, they don't respect the run fakes, the run game. Everything compounds and completely collapses in on itself. I don't think it's nearly as much as Geno's fault as everybody makes it out to be, but I also don't think anybody believes he's the kind of quarterback who's going to put a horrendous roster and situation on his back to win. I don't know if really any quarterback would be able to succeed with this roster and coaching staff. But watching Geno, for example, throw 2 interceptions on the same exact concept to the same exact safety Kevin Byard in the same exact coverage, this was no bueno. But even still, these problems I believe are more so attributed to the problems we've gone over today. This is a dagger concept designed to actually remove Byard from the equation. The Bears are playing Tampa 2 zone invert, so instead of Byard, the safety, being the deep safety, he's robbing the middle with a cornerback taking his spot deep. And with Trey Tucker and Dante Thornton running him off, dagger should be open, but because of the lack of deep threat, because of Geno's sped up clock in the pocket because of the poor pass protection, Byard doesn't care and picks it off. And what's even worse, a few drives later, the same exact thing happens again. The Raiders' offense is devastatingly disappointing everywhere you look, and there isn't really one thing they can hang their hats on. Their offensive line is atrocious, Genty can't get any room to run, and their guys get smoked in pass protection. Their scheme is terrible in so many different ways. The design, the execution, the communication. It's incredibly rare the Raiders have all 3 on a play. And then their passing game, all of these issues fall on Geno Smith to fix, and he's just not the guy who's going to lift a bad organization up. It'll be interesting to see how Mark Davis handles Pete Carroll at the end of the season. Pete is the Raiders' 5th coach in the last 5 years. He's owed a ton of money. He's 74 years old. Like, what was even the long-term plan? The Raiders are the NFL's worst this season. When you fail at this many different levels in football, it's impossible for anything to go well. Hopefully, Carroll can restore his past excellence of old, go on a run in the last few games to build something for next year, so that he and this 2025 team can start to somehow finally make the Raiders once again.